Hi everyone, I'm going to do my toy analysis on Sophie the giraffe. You can see Sophie right here. Oh, and I'd also like to introduce you to my new baby, Nora. She's sleeping right now in the Moby. Here she is. Kind of get a view of her face. Anyways, I'll get started on Sophie. So Sophie is most appropriate for children aged 0 to 2. And it is a teasing toy, so I say it's good until 2 years old because a child can still be teasing then. It is not typically associated with a gender. A boy or a girl could play with this and get the same amount of enjoyment out of it. And there are sort of cultural associations with Sophie, I would say. It is more geared to individualized play, which is what we in the United States really focus on. In our text by Kay Smith, they describe the Mayan culture where they are focused on interactive play with other age groups. So Sophie wouldn't be the best toy for older children to play with younger children with, unless they were maybe squeaking it and hiding it and having the child go find Sophie. So the gross motor skills needed to play with Sophie include hand-to-mouth movement to lift Sophie off a surface and put it in their mouth to tease. Also transferring Sophie from one hand to the other, crossing the midline. Also, if a caregiver or somebody playing with the child was to hide Sophie under a blanket and squeak it, then the child would need to crawl, walk, roll, or scoot to find Sophie under the blanket. So the fine motor skills needed to play with Sophie include grasping with the hands, biting, chewing, sucking on Sophie to tease, and grasping to squeak Sophie. So there are some cognitive requirements to play with Sophie, and the child needs the ability to recognize Sophie as a toy and to pick it up and play with it. Now, not necessarily at 0 months old, because Nora here isn't going to recognize Sophie or grasp it by herself, but she can play with it by me placing it in her hand and her reflexive grasp to hold on to it. I could also squeak it for her to turn her head and just show it to her because there are contrasting colors on Sophie. So the perceptual requirements to play with this toy are the sense of touch, to touch the rubbery feel, hearing, to hear the squeak, and looking to see the different contrasting colors, and taste to explore Sophie in their mouth. So a parent or caregiver can engage in social emotional development with the child if they play with Sophie together. This interaction supports the infant's arousal needs and forms a secure attachment to their parent or caregiver. There are some safety precautions in using Sophie. You need to make sure Sophie stays intact and the rubber does not start to crumble off, or else the child can ingest it. You need to make sure after extensive use the paint on Sophie is not coming off, or the child could be ingesting the paint. So if this does happen, you need to purchase a new Sophie. And also, when the child gets older and they use it as a teasing toy, make sure they don't stuff it too far down their throat and choke themselves. So this toy corresponds to Pygott's theory of sensory motor stage, which is the first stage in cognitive development. And this is the stage when knowledge is really limited to the physical experiences. And this is also when the child understands that the objects exist, object permanence, even when they don't see or hear it. So the child would need to think, oh, I want to play with Sophie right now, but it's not here. I need to go find it. That is object permanence. So Parton's theory corresponds with Sophie with unoccupied play and solitary play. Unoccupied play is when the child is relatively stationary and appears to be performing random movements with no apparent purpose. That's what Nora does right now. She does not have a purpose for most of her movements, but she will swing her arms around and I could place Sophie in her reflexive grasp. And that's also associated with solitary play, and this is when the child is completely engrossed in playing and does not notice other children. So Nora could be completely engrossed in playing with Sophie when she gets a little bit older. So if a child has a disability and is unable, let's say, to grasp Sophie with two hands, the OT could stabilize Sophie on a solid surface. They could use the high chair tray or a table, stabilize Sophie, and then the child can still use one hand to squeeze, touch, and chew on Sophie. I would recommend this toy because it involves many senses when playing with Sophie. The child feels the rubbery plastic very distinct. They can smell the distinct smell. And they can hear the squeaking. And they can visually explore Sophie with the light and dark. And they can explore the oral sensations when chewing on it. So this will be very helpful for Nora when she starts teething, maybe around 3 months. And that's all I have about Sophie.